Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Zach and I am the Swiftologist, and today we are discussing and revisiting Taylor Swift's 10th studio album, Midnights, in the wake of her breakup with her longtime beau, Joe Alwyn. And let me tell you, this breakup has me looking at this record in a completely different lens. I mentioned doing this in my last video that I did, kind of breaking down everything you need to know about the breakup, so go check that out if you haven't already. I just want to be clear before we start that if you believe, one, that Taylor Swift is not primarily interested in men, or two, that her and Joe Alwyn are still not broken up, then this is probably not the channel for you. And if you decide to let me know about either of those things in the comment section below, you will be blocked. So just a forewarning before we get any further into the video. Do you like the vibe? The vibe today is, I guess, like Cuban, Miami. I've been watching a lot of The Real Housewives of Miami, and I have just been getting a little inspired. So this is the look today. I was completely traumatized by that one person that told me to stop wearing dad shirts. So I'm trying to switch it up. And before we get into the video, I wanted to thank all of you so much for helping out my friend Sarah, who recently got diagnosed with breast cancer. She is a dear friend of mine who is in a really bad spot right now, and she was completely blown away by the support of the Swifties. You guys showed up. I'm so proud of all of you and thankful to have built this community and this space where we do good things for each other. You know, we kiki, we laugh, we bitch, we gossip, but at the end of the day, you know, it's all with good intentions. And Sarah definitely felt the love that you guys were sending her and all of your kind words as well. There are too many for me to read out every single name right now, so I'm going to figure out a way to thank you all very soon, but thank you so much if you donated. It means more than you know. Sarah is still fundraising, and you know, there's a long road ahead of her. So if you are again in the mood to do something good today, let it be donating to Sarah's GoFundMe. I will link that in the description below. So yeah, if you're new here, Swiftologist is a space where I make thoughtful weekly videos about pop culture. Like I said, we're revisiting Midnights today. If you like these kind of unfiltered, constructive, analytical, sometimes critical conversations about Taylor Swift, you need to check out The Evolution of a Snake, my podcast. We are, you know, just off to the races with the Patreon at the moment. We have the most amazing, fun, fulfilling conversations over there. We're thinking about opening a Discord sometime soon. It is a really cool community where we can have constructive conversations without the kind of dogpiling that I experienced on Twitter when I simply said that Joe Alwyn is boring. And what happened? I was attacked. You wouldn't believe what happened. I'm not even going to get into it because it's not worth my time on this channel. But, you know, I'm rethinking my relationship with Twitter. My Twitter is private. It's going to stay that way for a while. If you want to find me and have these conversations, you will find me having them with my co-host Madeline of the Evolution of a Snake said podcast that I've been talking about. We have so much fun stuff coming for you soon. And actually, right after this video premieres, probably a day or two later, we're going to be making a podcast episode doing a really big deep dive, a relationship autopsy, if you will, of Joe Alwyn and Taylor Swift, looking at all of the material that has been written about him so far. And let me tell you, it's going to be juicy. There's no one I love to talk about Taylor Swift more than my friend Madeline. She is, you know, another Swiftologist. Something else that I have done in the wake of this breakup is I have created a Spotify playlist called Well, It's Lover. And it is what I think is the emotional chronology of Taylor Swift and Joe Alwyn's relationship. Now, I'm not saying that it's exactly right or that the timing of all the songs or sequentially the songs are correct, because obviously I pulled all the songs that I think could be about him that were written during the period of their relationship, including Folklore and Evermore, which is a big question mark. So what I've done is tried to kind of ascertain a vibe and go through the vibe of the relationship to where I think mentally she's at now. And that is just purely crackpot speculation. But if you would like to listen to that, I have that linked down below. And also I'm going to go through it with you at the end of this video if there is still time, if this video is not 2 hours long already. But, you know, we're going to go through Midnights. And I think that not every single song has a clue as to what was going on, but I want to talk a little bit about Midnights in general before we get into like specific songs and where I think there might have been clues hidden along the way. And what I wanted to say is that Midnights always felt to me a little bit lacking, or that it was like missing some context, or that it was a bit vague in general. I was so excited when Taylor announced the concept of the album, in that it being recorded from many different midnights throughout her life. And obviously I think that a lot of the times Taylor doesn't write literally. She writes stuff that just sounds good, not stuff that necessarily is true to the exact experience of what happened. So the speculation really can go in so many different directions, and it does, in directions that it won't go in today. But because of that kind of ambiguity about it, I think that we were all kind of trying to figure out who every single song on Midnights was about without maybe, you know, having an essential piece of the puzzle, because relationships can fall apart very quickly, but I don't think that a 6-year relationship falls apart in the span of like 3 or 4 months between Midnights, you know, being put out and this relationship coming to an official end. My speculation theory is that, you know, it's been over for a while. Taylor's been, you know, trying to gracefully exit, thinking about how, you know, marketing wise, she was going to publicize this split. Obviously, a split in the Taylor Swift universe is a meaningful seismic event. It always has been. Taylor has always instructed us to pay attention to her relationships, to dissect them, to use them as clues to figure out what kind of, you know, space she's in mentally. And I think she has started to regret that as she's gotten older and wiser. Definitely, I think since we've had the first 2 Tampa shows, she has not really given any clues away during the surprise songs, which I was kind of surprised by. Like, I know she's become private, but I was speculating if that privacy was like more because of her partner at the time, or if it was something that she really was shifting in her life. And I think it is something that has shifted for sure. But I think part of the reason why there's a lot of ambiguity on Midnights, or that it feels unclear or unfinished, there are certain songs to me, like Maroon, for example, it's missing something. Like, the metaphors are not exactly clear. There are some very stirring and striking images, you know, the rust that grew between telephones. However, it doesn't all kind of come together with any sort of clarity when you're trying to pin it back to different kinds of Midnights throughout her life. And I think that if we look at this through the lens of how did this relationship break down, we get a lot more clarity, and Midnights is a lot more Easter eggy. And, you know, this is the best kind of Easter egg because it is unintentional. The Easter eggs that I hate are like the Bejeweled music video, where she's like so obviously hinting at something. An Easter egg is, you know, back in the day, in the lore of it all, an Easter egg was something that Taylor herself didn't even know she was leaving. It was a breadcrumb that she was kind of subconsciously letting us know, and we went back and put 2 and 2 together. And that is exactly what this video and this process is going to be today. So I hope that that sounds fun to you. This is all, again, in jest and speculation, and I am not saying that anything that I report to you in this video is the truth or the facts of the matter. It is just my spidey sense. I'm just doing some armchair psychoanalysis. If that makes you uncomfortable, you are very free to, you know, go elsewhere, watch other videos. You can watch other videos of mine, maybe some video essays. There's a lot out there for you. You don't have to sit here and go crazy in the comments. That's not your only choice, is what I'm trying to tell you. You can do something else other than harass me. So there are certain songs that I think are more revealing than others. I think there are some songs that like are not even about this situation or have anything to do with Joe at all. Like You're on Your Own Kid really is about her personal journey. And I think her relationship to being in the public eye and to her self-esteem evolving over the years and the kind of different various challenges she's faced being one of the most famous women in the world. But I think there are songs like Lavender, Haze, which came across when it first came out as like a very simple, like, I just want to be in love song. When I look back on that and when I watch the video too, there are clues. There are Easter eggs. There are things that are being revealed. So why don't we just pull up the lyrics here and go, you know, line by line, and let's see what we can find, okay? We're not going to go through every song on this record, but I'm going to go through the ones that I think have a very obvious Joe slant or may have a Joe interpretation. Staring at the ceiling with you, you don't ever say too much, and you don't really read into my melancholia. Now, the way that she's delivering this line is very kind of like sleepy, hazy, off the cuff. Do you think that it's good when you're in a relationship that your partner is like not really reading into your melancholia, isn't really like taking the time, making the effort to investigate why maybe you're feeling a little melancholic? Staring at the ceiling as well is a very kind of like, I guess, literary device to signal like abject boredom or despair. So if you're sitting in bed staring at the ceiling with someone, you're not talking. You're not feeling very like electric or connected or very sparked by their presence. You are kind of anesthetized. You're kind of living in a very dull state. Again, I'm speculating. I'm just trying to read into things that may or may not be there. I've been under scrutiny. You handle it beautifully. All this shit is new to me. I do wonder, like, what is new to her about this scenario? Is it that it's a private relationship? Is it the privacy of the relationship, the closed offness of it all? Is that what's new to her? I personally don't think it would ever have been sustainable for her to, prolong the level of privacy that she was trying to have with Joe for a really long period of time, especially given that Taylor Swift's muse is love itself, and falling in and out of love is probably her most interesting trope and topic that she discovers. And, you know, part of that process of getting inspired is falling in and out of love. And I think that, my hunch is that she just fell out of love with Joe. I don't think anything scandalous happened. I think that they just really wanted different things from life. And that has slowly started to become clear, as well as more Taylor sources have reported that Joe was not really able to super deal with Taylor's career, and Taylor really wanted to prioritize that, and she wasn't willing to compromise. And I think that we can see that, in Lavender Haze, because she's expressing a lot about her reputation. Again, we love to talk about that. I find it dizzying. They're bringing up my history, but you weren't even listening. And it's like, it's a good thing, I suppose, that he's not over obsessed with Taylor Swift, the celebrity. But I do wonder, if his interest in Taylor was shallow, or if it didn't take her seriously, if it didn't take her, her artistry, her excellence, her legacy into consideration. Something else that I've picked up on generally from Taylor's songs that she's written about Joe is that there's an inferiority that she feels to him. She feels that he is somehow above her, that he's too good for her, that she is lower than him. And I don't like that. I don't like that. So then we get into the chorus. I feel that lavender haze creeping up. Damned if I do give a damn what people say. No deal. The 1950s shit they want from me. So we're talking about marriage and engagement and all the kind of societal expectations of an aging woman. All they keep asking me is if I'm going to be your bride. The only kind of girl they see is a one night or a wife. And then she kind of skips straight back into the pre-chorus and goes back into I just want to stay in that lavender haze and the fun, buoyant, joyous part of this relationship. But what we don't get is you don't see yourself as a one-night girl or a wife. But what do you see? How do you see yourself kind of progressing in your life personally from here, at least? I think Taylor's a girl boss. That's the kind of girl she is. She is, if she were a man, she'd be the man. And I think we are circling the drain around that subject. It's only become more clear as Taylor has gotten older where her priorities are. Her priorities are, I think, being with her immediate family, so her blood relatives, and being the most successful Taylor Swift that Taylor Swift can be. Having a partner or being in a committed private partnership, I think, doesn't really complement those two goals, does it? And this, also it's kind of strange to want to stay in the lavender haze, that kind of beginning, lovey-dovey, the good part, the first part of a relationship where you're really obsessed with each other. It's strange to be ruminating on wanting to stay in a more casual phase of a relationship when you are 6 years into it. They've been dating for a long time by the time this song came out. And she is basically, confessing to the world that she's not interested in taking a next step. Whatever that next step might look like, she wants to stay exactly where she is, or perhaps return to a phase that the relationship was in before what's being written about in Lavender Haze. And if we're kind of trying to tie this to A Midnight with Joe, I would really date this around the kind of gap between Reputation and Lover, when she had publicly acknowledged that she was in love, but then was kind of sinking into the fact that she had to be in a partnership, a committed partnership that she had talked a lot about for a long period of time. There is something troubling in this song. There is a concern. And, speaking of concerning things, let's move on to Maroon, which is, I think, probably the most perplexing song on this album from the Joe perspective of it all. Okay, based on what I know about Joe, there are a lot of biographical details here that I think check out with it kind of being about him. He's kind of a bit of a pretentious person. He likes his film cameras. He likes his vinyl records, incense, ash. That all kind of checks out with who we know Joe to be, at least from what he said about himself in public. He's a little bit of a hipster, for lack of a better word. Someone that hangs out with people who listen to indie records that are much cooler than Taylor Swift's. The kind of person who, if he wasn't dating Taylor Swift, might actually say, who's Taylor Swift anyway? Ew. Also, roommates, cheap ass screw top rose. I know a lot of people have been tossing that about between Harry Styles and Joe Alwyn, but Harry Styles was living with a family at that time, a family who was quite wealthy. I don't think they were drinking screw top rose. Joe, as we know, was not doing much before he met Taylor Swift. Google searches were not high. He was not extraordinarily famous, and I bet he was living with a roommate, living with a friend, or whatever the hell it was. On the patreon.com/Swiftologist, Molly, one of our besties who gets a customized episode from us every single month, gave an extremely convincing theory that Maroon is about Joe. And she submitted that to us like 2 months ago. And now, all the pieces are falling together, Molly. So this is a shout out for you. But this song is so sparse and it's so vague on detail and it feels very fresh. That's kind of what I'm getting from this, is that it feels like an incomplete sentence. The chorus goes, I chose you, the one I was dancing with in New York, no shoes. A lot of people want to point to the Harry Styles of it all when they were in that bar and they did the Dirty Dancing pose. But if you think about it, Taylor and Joe's relationship really took off in Cornelia Street, where Taylor was living in a rental at the time. The dancing in New York with no shoes could absolutely have been a scene from that setting. Looked up at the sky, and it was the burgundy on my t-shirt. When you splashed your wine into me, I'm spilling wine in the bathtub. Dress, reputation. And how the blood rushed into my cheeks, so scarlet it was, the mark they saw on my collarbone. We're going to need to go back and date that, but I think there is some evidence that there was a mark on her collarbone around the time that she allegedly was starting things with Joe. And there definitely was an overlap with Joe and Tom Hiddleston. So that's another element of this relationship that is interesting to consider in hindsight, specifically when we get to a song like Midnight Rain. I love this line, the rust that grew between telephones. And what that's saying to me is a distance growing between two people who are very connected. That rusting, that kind of decay, the aging of something that should be an evergreen connected line. I think that this song is about a relationship starting to fall apart. And based on what we know of the timeline of when Midnights was being written, this kind of reminds me of that. And then we get into the second verse. When the silence came, we were shaking, blind and hazy. How the hell did we lose sight of us again? Now, again is the really interesting part of this story. Sobbing with your head in your hands. Ain't that the way shit always ends? So we know that Taylor and Joe had an extremely rocky beginning to their relationship. I mean, we hear it in songs like Delicate and Cornelia Street. It was fragile. It was frangible. They were kind of hesitant to commit to each other. We know they had some pretty big arguments. I mean, we listen to songs like Afterglow. So this, the idea of how did we lose sight of us again, this song has to be about someone that Taylor has been in an on again, off again relationship with. And the rest of her relationships were, I would say, a little bit too short to be on again and off again with this kind of sincerity. You were standing hollow-eyed in the hallway, carnations you had thought were roses. That's us. I feel you. No matter what, the rubies that I gave up. Now, the idea of her love with Joe being something that she gave up, not necessarily because it wasn't the best thing for her, but because it wasn't what she wanted. Rubies are a valuable possession, but they are beautiful ornaments. They're not essentials to your life. And sometimes, you have to make sacrifices to pursue the things that you need in life. And I wonder if Joe turned from being a need in her life to being a desire or just being an accessory. And I mean, giving that up, even if she's ready to move on from it, is painful and hard. Awake with your memory over me. That's a real fucking legacy to leave. Now, do I think, again, that any of her prior relationships that took place with an extreme New York setting had enough of a standing in her life to be a legacy? Maybe Harry, maybe. I mean, Question literally appears on this album. So, I mean, it's definitely a possibility. I'm still torn between who this is exactly about, but I think we get some absolutely massive context clues on what exactly was being broken down in this relationship. Up next is Antihero, and I don't think that Antihero has like a huge amount of detail or clarity on their relationship because it's not really about a relationship, but I think the idea of, everybody being a sexy baby and her being the monster on the hill, too big to hang out, slowly lurching towards your favorite city. Her being too big to hang with normal people, and I'm sure a lot of the people in Joe's life are just ordinary people. What do young couples like to do? They like to go to a dinner party. They like to go to a bar. They like to go to a gallery opening. They like to go to an art show. Taylor can't do any of those things without it being an extremely abnormal event. Even if she tries to just kind of go incognito, she's Taylor Swift. There's no running. There's no hiding from that. And I don't think that really she was able to make herself small enough to fit into the kind of normalcy that someone like Joe, not even Joe specifically, but any sort of like normal, regular human being would have around them at all times. In that sense, I think it would be easier maybe for her to date someone that was more famous just because they would have a similar life experience and their day-to-day existence would be more, I guess, it would elicit the same reactions from the people around them. Whereas with Joe, I feel like whatever room he walks into with Taylor, she is the star. And that's hard. that's a very hard place to be in all the time, when sometimes you don't want to be the supportive partner, you want to be the one that's being supported and not having the light taken off of you the entire time. Snow on the Beach is an interesting one because I think that this is kind of about the more, I would say, beginning stages of her relationship with Joe. I'm really getting that, especially from the bridge. Like, I can't speak. I'm afraid to jinx it. Isn't it delicate? I don't even dare to wish it. Is it cool that I said all that? But your eyes are flying saucers from another planet. Now I'm all for you. Like, Janet, can this be a real thing? Can it? And I think that that is the question that animated this relationship for a long time was, okay, there's a lot of feeling here. There's a lot of love. There's a lot of passion. But can this be real? Can this live in the real world that I exist in? Can we mesh our lives together? Do our personalities even complement each other like that? That is kind of, I can see an interpretation there. Now we get into Midnight Rain, which is an incredible song, very perplexingly short. It actually doesn't need to be any longer because it reveals so much. Taylor is very self-aware in this song, and I always thought that this was about Tom Hiddleston. I think it still could be, I suppose. But I'm kind of starting to think it's more about Joe, because there is a getaway car vibe and element to this song, and I think that the getaway car period of time has a lot of spillover between Joe and Tom. And if you really think about it, the getaway car was Tom, but she got out of that getaway car and into another one with Joe. Like, when did she really have a time by herself to reset and reflect and find herself after a very traumatic thing in her life, Snakegate being canceled? When did she really have some me time, some alone time to figure out who she was in the wake of that? Not who she was as a girlfriend, as a partner, as a team. Who was she by herself? She didn't really have that time. And I think that that's been a problem in their relationship. Another theory I have about Toe is that they met each other at a very traumatic time for Taylor. There was definitely a victim-savior complex going on. Taylor really lauded him as someone that brought her back to normal and gave her a purpose and a sense of self that was beyond just being a pop star. And I think their relationship might have gotten stuck in that dynamic. And we can see the beginnings of that relationship described in the first verse of Midnight Rain. My town was a wasteland, full of cages, full of fences, pageant queens and big pretenders. But for some, it was paradise. It was paradise for her for a period of time. She liked that, and she still does like that. And I think that's the contrast and the tension in this song that really animates it, is that she likes the wasteland town full of cages and fences and pageant queens and big pretenders. She knows that maybe it's not the best thing for her, but there's something interesting and stimulating about that experience for her. My Boy was a montage, a slow motion love potion jumping off things in the ocean. I broke his heart because he was nice. Now, I'm of two minds about this. I don't know that Joe was all that nice. He was very, from Taylor's writings of him, respectful, honorable, full of integrity, strong personality-wise, had his own kind of, desires and wishes. He was the stable person in this relationship, right? I think that nice probably isn't a word she would use to describe him, but at the end of the day, nice is also kind of a synonym for a lacking. If something's great, you say it's great or amazing or incredible. Nice is just kind of like, it's normal. It's okay. It's serviceable. It's workable. But is it everything? No. And I don't think Joe is everything to her. I also don't buy that Joe is sunshine. When you see him in interviews, he's like very stony faced, but maybe in private, he is this lovey-dovey London boy that is so sunshine that she becomes Midnight Rain. He wanted it comfortable. I wanted that pain. He wanted a bride. I was making my own name. Chasing that fame. He stayed the same, and all of me changed like Midnight Rain. So Tom Hiddleston was literally like a huge movie star by the time that she was dating him, and he was my other contender for this song, and I guess Taylor Lautner too, but both of them were like big movie stars at the time. The only kind of nothing person that she's been dating since she was chasing that fame was Joe. And the Midnight Rain idea of her just kind of not being able to handle normal or not being interested enough in having a normal life. Taylor is not a normal person. She is never going to be, never has been. She doesn't know that experience. It's kind of a grass is greener situation. I think she's very intrigued by normal people. She finds it very quaint to be private, to be normal, to have a small life. But that's just not her reality, and it's never going to be. So I mean, it came like a postcard, picture perfect, shiny family, holiday peppermint candy, but for him, it's every day. Do you see what I mean? It's like a trap to her almost. It's a confinement because that's not her everyday. I peered through a window, a deep portal, time travel, all the love we unravel, and the life I gave away. You see what I mean? She's giving something up to be with Joe. She's giving something up to have a normal life. She's relinquishing something that is more important to her than this relationship to continue going with it. And she, I guess, had one of those moments. I feel like it's like when you're really drunk, sometimes when you're out and you're drunk and you're doing something really stupid and you're maybe with someone you shouldn't be. And then you have a moment of clarity in the bathroom mirror. You look at yourself and you're like, oh my God, I need to go home. And I feel like, you're under a spell the entire night. That's kind of where I'm getting Taylor's mentality is. And that outro, I guess, sometimes we all get just what we wanted. And he never thinks of me except when I'm on TV. Layers to unpack and to unravel there. He never thinks of me except when I'm on TV. Again, do I think that Joe is super invested in Taylor Swift, the phenomenon? I don't know. I don't think so. He probably only considers that when he's forced to encounter it, like when she's on TV. I guess sometimes we all get some kind of haunted, and I never think of him except on midnights like this. Now, this is where I'm kind of like, okay, maybe this could be about someone else because I think she was still going through it with Joe. Like it wasn't completely done when this was being written. But I think also Taylor doesn't always write literally. And a lot of these songs, After Folklore and Evermore particularly, are like composite sketches. They take like different moments from different times in her life and, compile a picture. And she works with what sounds good and what makes sense in a story. Because the song itself it's not straight up truth nonfiction. It's inspired by real life events. Then we get into Question, which is the craziest song in the world. And I flagged this when the album came out. Anybody in a happy relationship forever and ever would not be writing a song like Question. No, they wouldn't. They would not. She was sending the bat signal. Putting in that I remember at the beginning is one of the craziest things she's ever done. And I love that for her. But not only was she talking about, how whatever this event is that's described in the song, no matter how that person is, a meteor that changed her life forever and will always have a certain gravitational pull to her, she makes sure to let us know that it is not Joe. She starts it with I Remember, the Out of the Woods sample. And you can't argue that she's trying to tell us something here. And I guess the question that I would have for her is why? Is it because you are not happy in your current relationship and you want to get out of it? You only start thinking seriously, like everybody has those thoughts, I guess, when they're in a relationship, of those like would have, could have, should have moments, of those, missed connections, but you don't verbalize them. You keep it in your brain and you keep it to yourself. You don't share it with the entire world unless you're okay with that relationship going away. Honestly, this is like a provocation. This was a trigger. I'm sure Joe heard this song and was like, what the fuck? And they were in trouble. This song was not written on the night that she was writing, a song like, I don't know, Paper Rings. This was written on a Midnight Rain song. Midnight Rain is really the turning point on this record. And it's the bridge that really puts this into inappropriate territory for a loved up lady. Does it feel like everything's just like second best? Everything, even this relationship that I love, even my London boy that I've been banging on about for months, doesn't it feel like it's second best after that meteor strike? What's that I heard? You're still with her? That's nice. I'm sure that's what's suitable, just like the relationship I'm in is suitable for me. And but tonight, I want to be messy. I want to ask you a question, bitch. And there actually isn't a lot of analysis needed on Question. It is a very straightforward song. It is a clear and specific message. Okay, Bejeweled. Another extremely alarming song that in hindsight should have been very clear. Now, remember how I said earlier that I don't think that Joe is that nice and I don't think that he's that invested in Taylor Swift, the legacy? Baby love, I think I've been a little too kind. I didn't notice you walking all over my peace of mind in the shoes I gave you as a present. Because we know she's his sugar mama. Putting someone first only works when you're in their top 5. And by the way, I'm going out tonight. I mean, You can't put baby in a corner. You cannot put a paper bag on Taylor Swift's head. It's not possible. She'll take it off, and what's she going to do? Be bejeweled. She's going to walk into the room. She's going to make the whole place shimmer. And I feel like she didn't get to shimmer. And when we get into that line later, I miss you, but I miss sparkling, we can really see that she loves to be the center of attention. She's a pop star. She's earned it. She wouldn't be a pop star if she didn't love attention, if she didn't love to walk in the room and make the whole place shimmer, as she fucking should. And I think she was always downsizing herself a little bit, making herself small so she could fit into Joe's idea of what a normal private relationship should look like. And let's just be honest and be realistic. That's not Taylor Swift. Never has been, never will be. And God help her, because she cannot keep up that facade of, I'm okay with Sweet Nothing forever and ever. She's not. Even in the song Sweet Nothing, in hindsight, there are signs that she's not okay with that. The chorus is very wordy and it has a lot of juice. Familiarity breeds contempt. When you get a little too comfortable, when you just want to be too nice, when you change like midnight rain. Don't put me in the basement when I want the penthouse of your heart. Treat me like you fucking love me. Don't just treat me like a given. Don't act like I'm going to be here all the time. I know you think that you got me, and I might have led you to believe that because I wrote an entire album about how you got me forever and ever and how I'd marry you with paper rings. But, you know, there are diamonds in my eyes and I polish up real nice, and it would behoove you to take me out on the town for a spin and let me walk around and shimmer so that I don't need to say, can I ask the band, do you have a man? I made you my world. This is one of my favorite lyrics on the album, actually. I made you my world. Have you heard? I can reclaim the land. And it's true. She charted out all this space and devotion and dedication to this man. But what he doesn't realize is that that can be revoked in 2 seconds. You might think that you've got Miss Americana under your thumb, but she's bejeweled. You can't. Karma is her boyfriend. You don't know what she's going to do. We're dancing all night. You can try to change my mind, but you might have to wait in line. This is the thing. It's like, prioritize me. Make me feel special, because I have to shimmer. I am bejeweled. And, you know, if you don't agree, then perhaps this is not going to work. Labyrinth and Sweet Nothing are the love songs of this record, and that in and of itself is extremely concerning when you look at the lyrical context, in the context of she broke up with her boyfriend a few months after this album came out. Labyrinth is not a song that I love to listen to, but I did re-listen, and this is what I've surmised from the lyrics. Okay, it only hurts this much right now was what I was thinking the whole time. She is definitely circling the drain of that reputation moment of them meeting for the first time, her beginning to prioritize him. That is definitely a lyrical theme that we see a lot. What's interesting is how even at this beginning stage that I think she's describing here, because she says, I'm falling in love again. I thought the plane was going down. How did you turn it around? You know, he met her, victim savior complex, blah, blah, blah. We've discussed all of that. What's interesting here is the I'll be getting over you my whole life. It's almost like she really wanted him to be her person, but deep down, she knew that it wasn't going to be forever. She tried to make it so. She tried to trick herself into believing it, but she has to make the whole place shimmer. She was going to change like midnight rain. And a deep part of her, Taylor's the most self-aware person in the world, a deep part of her knew that this was not the forever arrangement. You would break your back to make me break a smile. You know how much I hate that everybody just expects me to bounce back. And that's also interesting. But again, a lot of these love songs that she's written are actually kind of about her and about her mentality and about how she processes traumatic events that happen to her, and less about how this love has changed her life, more kind of how it existed as a tool to help her realize things about herself. But now we're getting into Sweet Nothing, which on first glance is a very happy song, but when I'm reviewing it now is actually very sad. Even when you listen to it, it's like a sad, kind of depressing, apocalyptic song almost. It's like the song that you play right before you know the world is going to end. Like, you know, a meteor is literally about to come and ruin your life and destroy everything that you know. And so there's nothing you can do about it. So you just sit there and you think about, well, it's over. Starting this song with the image of a pebble that her man's picked up, put in his pocket, and wondering if it misses being where it was before he picked it up and started taking care of it and protecting it from the world, giving it a new home. I mean, it's interesting. That's interesting. They say the end is coming. Everyone's up to something. I find myself running home to your sweet nothings. Outside, they're pushing and shoving. You're in the kitchen humming. all that you ever wanted from me was sweet nothing. The way she sings it sounds really sad. It sounds as though she's reflecting on something, a period of time that was mismatched expectations. He was living his best life and thinking that everything was going really well. Kind of that idea of, you know, I've been a little too kind. You're not prioritizing me. You're just too comfortable. I want that pain. That area of existence is where she is. All that you ever wanted from me was sweet nothing. And she's like, I want my baby to want everything from me. I want passion. I want screaming and fighting and kissing in the rain. She's told us that she's wanted that from day one. On the way home, I wrote a poem. You say, what a mind. This happens all the time. She sounds almost like bored of it. She's like, don't you know me well enough? This happens all the time. It's like, get over it. You know who I am by now. You're interested in it or you're not interested in it. Let's not feign surprise here. Maybe she wants someone that is like a little bit more intellectually on her level, that also has this creative, artistic flair and spark and passion in them. She loves to work. She loves to create. Joe clearly doesn't love to work, and he hasn't created anything to my knowledge. I think this song was written about her being in the pandemic and not really knowing what move to make before she did Folklore, because Lover was not a resounding success, and she knows that. She's reflected on that publicly now. Industry disruptors and soul deconstructors and smooth talking hucksters outgland-handing each other. This is when also she was trying to decide how she was going to do her master's re-recordings. And the voices that implore, you should be doing more. Being an activist, speaking up, she's always being implored to do that. To you, I can admit that I'm just too soft for all of it. And I think the idea of her being too soft for all of it is a wider lens than we might think. Then we have Mastermind, which I have really been thinking about a lot lately because I love this song. And I think it's very interesting that it's one of the songs that she put on the tour set list. And I have been kind of wondering, it ostensibly appears to have some sort of like positive, happy message, but this is actually just like a self-congratulatory song in hindsight. This isn't about Joe at all. This is about how Taylor is the fucking HBIC. She is the mastermind. She is a controlling, calculating, manipulative snake. We love it. We love that about her. And she's just congratulating herself on this, invisible string achievement that she's had. And it is interesting that it's the bookend of the standard edition of Midnight. So in the first verse, she's talking about how all the planets and the stars are aligning, and she's assessing the equation of him. How do I like him? Do I want him to fit into my life? And she says, checkmate. I couldn't lose. And it's true. I think if Taylor wanted this relationship to go on forever, it would have. I think that she really did hold the cards in that respect. I don't think she got broken up with. Let's just say that. What if I told you none of it was accidental, and the first night that you saw me, nothing was going to stop me? I love Mastermind. It's one of my favorite songs on the record. And, what if I told you I'm a mastermind and now you're mine? It was all by design because I'm a mastermind. She's like, I'm smarter than you, basically. Like, I knew that this was going to happen before you did. And she does kind of flip that on its head and say, he knew also, he. That's why we're so perfect for each other. But this is really more about her than him. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Strategy sets the scene for the tale. I'm the wind in our free-flowing sails and the liquor in our cocktails. See what she's saying? She's the engine. She's the person that's driving the transformation in this relationship. She's what keeps it going. And when you don't pay attention and you don't participate, and she's been a little too kind, she needs to go and shimmer. She needs to go elsewhere and make the whole place shimmer. And I think where we really get a sense that this is about her is in the bridge. No one wanted to play with me as a little kid, so I've been scheming like a criminal ever since to make them love me and make it seem effortless. Mirror ball vibes. This is the first time I've felt the need to confess. And she's talking to the audience, to the listener, not to Joe. I'm very sure here. And I swear, I'm only cryptic and Machiavellian because I care. True. T. And she does flip it around and say, you knew, haha, hee hee ho ho. But again, this is about the bitch. It's about the girly. I think that I've actually banged on about this for too long, so I'm not going to get into my playlist, but I will leave it linked down below, and you will hear me discuss it on The Evolution of a Snake in our relationship autopsy episode coming up very soon. Might also go on the YouTube channel. We'll see about all that. Let me know what you think about Midnights as you're revisiting it with this in mind. Do you agree with what I've said? Do you have a different take? I would love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to donate to Sarah's GoFundMe. If you're interested in doing something good today, check out the patreon.com/swiftologist, subscribe, blah, 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 all of that. I will see you in my next video. Goodbye, Swifties.